is to get him around the group in a team setting, in a non-contact jersey. That's what he was today. He'll participate like that. And then obviously the final step is to get him into game real scenarios.
And well, Davidson was that so he's still out.
He is.
Is he potentially going on his reserve or anything?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think right now he's on a return to play protocol, which will involve, both on ice and off ice at this point.
I was just going to ask if he's skating.
He has, yes, and so I'm not sure if it's going to affect us as far as roster is concerned.
He's not going on the trip.
Eddie is not. Remps is.
Oh, he is. Okay,
Yes.
So he can practice.
Yes.
What about is Adam Fox skating?
Foxy continues with his rehab. He has been on the ice the last, I want to say it's the last 2 days. He's been on the ice twice. That's my understanding.
Obviously, Fox is going to have to. How do you feel like you guys have played defensively these last handful of games?
I think the guys have done a really good job. We're competing hard. He's not an easy guy to replace, as you know. I think, he plays a lot of minutes first and foremost. He helps us with our transition game, his ability to move the puck, transition the puck, join the offense. He's active off the offensive blue line, helps us on the power play, and he defends hard. He's hockey strong. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's hockey strong. He competes hard in puck battles. He wins a lot of puck battles in our end, and so he helps us in so many ways. He's not an easy guy to replace. I think the guys that have stepped in have done a real good job, just as far as bringing what they bring, not trying to do too much, playing within themselves, defending hard when we need to, and so we'll continue to work at it.
As a team, especially the last 2 games, do you think you're getting closer to the identity that you want?
Yeah, I do. I think we're playing a game where I think one of the first conversations we've had around this whole idea of what type of team we want to be, AKA an identity. We want to be a team that's hard to play against, and the reason for that is because it's hard to win if we're not. And so, a big part of that is managing the puck, making teams work for their offense, not providing them easy offense opportunities. Well, the best way to do that is to mismanage the puck and give them, easy offense, playing half the rink or 3/4 of the ice, odd man situations, things of that nature, or not being committed to defend when we're in our end. And I think the guys have really bought into it. I think our one of our better attributes in this early part of the season that I've seen is our ability to defend up the ice with a puck pursuit game. Just getting up in fives and playing on top of teams and forcing them to have to work to exit zones and gain access to our zone. I think that's a big part of our team defense is 150, 160 feet from our net. It's not just playing in our end. And then our possession game down low. We've talked a lot about building a grind game, having the ability to create offense different ways. When we can possess the puck in the offensive zone, we may not score every shift, but that's how you control momentum. You can control territory. You can force teams to expend energy defending you, and then they don't have the juice to go on the offense if they're defending you. And so that's a big part of winning, I think, in today's game. And so it's also a big part of being hard to play against in today's game. I think it's important. It's essential that we have the ability to create offense different ways. We're going to get it off the rush with some of the talent that we have. I think our power play has made strides. I think that grind game we can continue to work at and get better. I think Mika Zibanejad's goal, for example, is a great example of it the other night. Laugh's goal, for that matter, just possessing the puck in the offensive zone, establishing that grind game, and I think we can create that way. And so I think we're getting better in those areas of the game. So from an identity standpoint, are we getting closer to what we want to look like when our team's at its best? Yes.
I wanted to ask about Mika. You mentioned it. At the start of the year, I know it was important to both he and JT that they play together, and we were trying to find combinations that work as you often say. now you put Mika and Aaron together. Do you like that? Do you like what you've seen from those two, and and why do you think it's working for you?
I have liked it, and I think one of the reasons why I think it has an opportunity to be successful for us is, Mika, I think, is a cerebral player, and he has really good offensive instincts. So he can, play a dynamic game off the rush, which I think plays to one of Brett's strengths, and he can play a possession game, which I think is complementary to Brett's game. I also think he's a cerebral player defensively. There's an honesty to Mika's game where he's on the right side of the puck a lot, and he's in the right positions a lot, and he has a good stick, and he's committed to playing on both sides of the puck, and I think he adds that element to that line. So I think Mika has fit there since we put him there, for all of those reasons.
Mike, I wanted to ask about JT. He's made reference a couple times recently that he feels like his timing offensively has improved lately. I'm curious what you're seeing from him. Does it feel like maybe he has the puck on his stick a little more than he did earlier in the season?
I think so, way more. I think I think his fitness is improving. I think his speed, his overall speed, is improving, and I think he has the puck a lot more, and because of it. So, I think with the line the way it's constructed right now with JT's line, those three guys, they're pretty good with that puck pursuit game in the offensive zone. JT likes to play that grind game in the offensive zone. He's heavy on the puck. He's strong. He likes to hang on to pucks, but he needs help when teams collapse coverage on him. And I think that's where a guy like Honashiri or Troach, for example, they can be good in those areas also. They're good, and their tight area skills are pretty good. They can play in traffic and they embrace contact. So I think that certainly complements JT's game. But I think JT's last few games are amongst his best that he's had all year long. He's there were a few instances where you watch him from the bench, and the feeling I get is that he's in beast mode. When he's possessing the puck in the offensive zone and using his size and his physical stature to protect pucks and roll off the pressure and look for that next play. He's hard to handle. He's a handful for anyone because of how big and how strong he is, and I think we're seeing more and more of that, more consistently in the games that most recently, the last handful of games.
He was talking about the identity too, because we know you've tried some different combinations in the top six, trying to figure out what's going to work. He feels like the guys that he's with now, he was saying, kind of like-minded. They like to grind teams down. They're pretty effective with that north-south kind of game. And we've seen the deployment. They make it out there against McKinnon and Eichel and those type of guys. Whereas now Mika's line, does that almost allow them to go hunt offensively a little more when they maybe don't have to go head to head with McKinnon's quite as often? Like, is the deployment feeling like it's kind of finding a good niche for you right now?
Yeah, I think obviously we've gone power against power a fair amount. And JT and Troach, when they're together, they tend to get the lion's share of other teams' top players. I think, and ideally, we'd like to spread that a little bit to maybe to give JT and Troach an opportunity to get away from them, and free them up sometimes against maybe more favorable matchups at times. And depending on how the game goes, we look to do that anyway. It all depends on, do we have a lead? Are we behind? It all depends on what the situation is. But, one of the things I've tried to do is as Lobbs' game has developed, especially with a guy like Will Cooley on his line, I feel like it gives us the opportunity to use those guys and situationally against other teams' top players. They can get a defensive zone start, for example. Will Cooley's pretty good in the face-off circle. He's a left shot guy. Lobbs is pretty good in the face-off circle. He's a right shot guy. So to have two of those guys on the same line can be beneficial. Sam Carrick's line has got a little bit of that with a defensive zone start against some of the other teams' top people. And that gives us the chance to maybe take JT and Troach out of those situations sometimes, and maybe have an opportunity to deploy them more on the offensive side with a more favorable matchup. It all depends on circumstance. So, I don't know that we have one formula that we kind of just stick to. A lot of it for me is a feel thing, and it just depends on how the game evolves. And then we try to make adjustments and decisions from a deployment standpoint. As a coaching staff, we do that game to game.
Do you feel like having Will Cooley, like you were saying, on that third line has provided an element of balance that it didn't have the line beforehand?
Yes. Yeah, I think it does. Will's obviously, if you look at our players and our forwards and you rank them in the tops, 1 to 12, 1 to 13, whatever you want to call it, 1 to 14, Will would be in our top 6 without a doubt. Right? But the question is what's the best combinations that set our team up for success? I've always been a strong believer that balance is important. Because if you're relying on 1 or 2 lines every night to try to produce offensively or to try to win games for you, my experience has been that it's hard to win consistently in today's game. And so, an opportunity to create a little bit of balance through our lineup, both up front but also on the blue line, I think gives us more of an opportunity to build a team game where any particular line on any given night can help us, both offensively and defensively. And so I just think balance is an important element of being a good team in today's game. When we move Will into that line with Lobbs, that just gives us that much more balance.